had a professor who took me out to lunch late in my first year in law school. And I still remember he leaned across the table and said, "Have you thought about going into teaching in law school?" I was astonished by the notion that someone would think I could teach in law school. We left lunch and I finished up my afternoon classes. And I got my little Volkswagen to drive home. And I was driving along and I remember saying, "Professor Warren, Professor Warren, Professor Warren." And I thought, damn, that sounds good.
Such a good question.
The moment I decided to become a law professor was when I realized that law professors could both be professorial and academic and also play a role in the real world and do both together.
Now, probably,
The remarkable thing about being a law professor is you own your own mind. You are the client. You don't have to take your assignment from anyone else. You pursue the question, the topic, the issue that animates you, and you can pursue it at any level that you want.
all groups they might have.
Being a professor, it's one of the most powerful tools of advocacy because you affect people that are then going to affect lots of people. So it's sort of a multiplying effect.
There's going to be a million opportunities for me. A lot of them afforded by the professors that I've met here, and I can kind of pick and choose and custom make my own legal career.
It's great to have young students seeing what I'm doing and wanting to do the same thing. It's a bit of a reminder of how lucky I am and the people here are in having this job.
Harvard Law School takes really seriously the responsibility of training the next generation of legal scholars and teachers.
I grew up in Monterrey, Mexico, and I came to Texas right before high school, and I was put in an ESL program. A lot of my friends in that program dropped out of school, didn't make it anywhere because there was a real failure in the sort of receiving system. So I got interested in changing that, and then I found that there's no way to change that except through either politics or law. What I wanted to do was unique and sort of not yet done, and I just found a lot more support along wider lines here at Harvard. Garnishing support from the Latino community.
Harvard Law School is surrounded by all these great schools and departments, by a world-class history department, philosophy department, economics department, government department.
I've always been very interested in interdisciplinary work because a lot of the insights of social psychology had really been a lot of important implications for law and legal theory. That was really great to sort of get into something that I felt like was really cutting edge. And it definitely informed my decision when I sort of went off. I got a Knox Fellowship to come to Cambridge.
You start with a problem, you start with difficulties in the world, and you use whatever disciplines you need.
I think the professors who mattered most to me and who convinced me I could do this were Dick Fallon and Martha Minow. They were both relatively young professors when I came to the law school, and they took a real interest in me, and they convinced me that I had the right stuff to be a law professor, so to speak.
An important thing about somebody who wants to go into academia is finding a professor to work with, forming that relationship, finding an area of study that they're interested in.
Students show up and they say, I'm just really interested in this. All you got to do is find a faculty member like me or like somebody else who says, I'll take you on, and we'll do it as independent study. But you're the one who's going to have to design and make this happen. And we form a partnership, and the students explore what they want to explore.
I ended up finding that actually with my torts professor, John Hansen. He let me look over one of the papers that he was working on, and I ended up offering some comments. We talked a little bit more. I then did some more research for him and his co-author, and that's sort of when I thought, you know what, maybe legal academia is a good career path for me.
And if you come over on Saturday, when I get invitations to write something for symposia at which there will be a conference, I often will take a student and say, here's an opportunity for us to write something, and here's the topic. For example, Adam Benferrato and I recently wrote a piece celebrating the great work of Guido Calabresi, a Second Circuit judge now, but better known as a legal scholar and dean of Yale Law School for many years. Adam not only attended the conference, but he and I co-presented the paper.
I feel very grateful that Professor Warren invited me to attend a small sort of working group conference called Empirical Studies of Commercial Law. Professors from around the country get together once a year. I really got to see the way in which professors challenge each other's ideas, from just having an idea to publishing their research. It was totally cool. It was just really interesting.
Why am I the first person that's thought of this? And I think that anybody that's writing ought to wonder, like, why hasn't somebody else written about this before?
So you can spend a large amount of your time here researching and writing and working closely with faculty members in seminars and colloquia, independent studies, which often result in co-authorship with faculty members, through a summer fellowship program that we run for people interested in academics, and in postgraduate work too.
There are some steps you have to learn in order to move from the paper submitted for academic work to the paper that actually is published. That includes learning to consider an audience that isn't just the professor. That includes, frankly, writing an opening paragraph that's aimed for the selection process.
The beauty of publishing is that you publish the final version, not what you started with, and you can hide that. Getting students to see what's hidden is a big part of the process.
When I work with a student on a paper, I'm always saying, can we publish this? Let's think about that. Sometimes I talk with students who've written something somewhere else for another faculty member or in a prior academic study. And we explore the ways in which they can publish that. That's something that happened, for example, with Alexi.
When I came here, I had my thesis and I wanted to make it into a law review article. Professor Minnow sort of really took it on.
I said, well, this should be published. It's so interesting.
And she was phenomenal, getting me into the world of publishing.
You can assess.
Actually, just the beginning is a nice feeling, and that's an achievement. I mean, there's some projects that you don't get that far. You think about it, you talk about it, but that first page does not get written. Another great feeling is the end. I'll be working, and then all of a sudden I lean back and I'll realize that I finished the book 2 weeks ago.
It seems to me that your argument has sort of an odd structure to it.
This summer we started a summer fellowship series for law students who are interested in legal teaching.
What the students in this program do is they write drafts of papers, and then they get critiqued by a whole range of law professors.
But we've put together this program that would provide a fellowship about the same amount of money that someone would get as in a public interest fellowship.
I've got this great set of arguments, and I am the first person to think about this.
If you're in this room, you're at risk for how the game is played. That's what
teaching has changed for me through the years. At the beginning, I wondered if it would ever get better, if I would always be on this roller coaster of sick with dread and fear and anxiety over what I was about to do, and exhilarated with what it was like when it connected, when it worked, when someone got it.
I had to find my way as a teacher. When I walked into the classroom the first day, my model for the way to be a good teacher was to practice the so-called Socratic method of asking one question after another, leading students along without ever making affirmative statements. And I found that that just was not me.
The very first day, I was petrified. My mouth was moving, and my brain was saying, Randy, you don't know anything.
I didn't start off being a very good teacher. I visited a lot of people's classes. People visited my class. We talked with each other. We videotaped. Over time, I got better. I've also found it incredibly helpful to remember that I should be myself in the classroom.
A willingness to learn from fears And a willingness to learn from mistakes is what makes a good teacher.
People really look up to law professors as the idea makers. These are the people who are thinking the big thoughts, who give advice to people who are fighting the real fight. What's exciting to me is that in 20 years, I probably will be publishing, I probably will be writing books, but I might be working on the democracy in Mexico.
What I've been thinking about a lot is criminal law and specifically death penalty issues. And so I could see that turning into an area of research for me. When you study something and you get invested in it, you start seeing the ways in which it needs to change.
There's some of my colleagues who have a passionate interest in propounding an idea. Sometimes I've simply wanted to ignite a debate.
After my 100th student became a law professor, I stopped counting. I go to professional meetings and I encounter my students. I open up law journals and I encounter my students. I have students who are deans. I have students who have become university presidents. I have students who have written books in fields that I now consult. For me, it's an enormous source of pride and gratification.
The most powerful part of what teaching is about. Teaching the teachers, multiplying the ideas, changing the world.
It's the best job in the world.
I love my job.
I feel almost embarrassed about how much I like my job.
Oh, I love the job. I love this job.
If you can think of a better job, I would love to hear it. I myself have not been able to find one.
I love my job. What am I going to say? I can't believe I get paid for doing this. This isn't going to be shown to the dean, is it?